Welcome to Pera's Playbook. This is your host, Alex Pera. Let's open up our playbook and see who our guest is. Please enjoy. Welcome to episode 122 of Pera's Playbook. Today I'm joined by John Bronson, a former Penn State Nittany Lion and then Arizona Cardinal. He was a tight end, actually defensive end turned tight end. We'll dive into all of that later in the episode. But John, appreciate you hopping on the podcast. How are you this evening?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Well, we'll start before we kind of dive into your career. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the current state of affairs in college football and specifically your alma mater, Penn State. This year's it's a fun year for football because you got the expanded playoff, gives teams that maybe didn't have a chance more hope that hey, we could make it this year, and once you get in, anybody can do anything. And I think Penn State is an interesting team to kind of look at because over the past, James Franklin years, there's been many years where this is the year they're finally going to get over the hump. They're finally, and they've often been that sixth team sitting on the outside, kind of looking in. And they're loaded with talent, obviously, across the board. Drew Aller and Tyler Warren and Nick Singleton. I mean, their defense is stacked, their offense is stacked. So everyone kind of thinking that this is Penn State's year. And then they go and they lose to Ohio State in a close game. Close game. I thought for sure they were going to get them this year. Oh, they're gonna win that game. They started off great. What are your thoughts so far on kind of the way the season has gone for Penn State?
Yeah, that's been the story of my Penn State life here, with Ohio State lingering over. But, my Penn State Nittany Lions, they've had a fantastic year so far. Of course, we're very critical, especially as alumni, and we always want to be better and do more. And of course, we wish we kind of took that one against Ohio State. But even with that, we're sitting in a good mark right now. I believe we're fourth in the polls right now, or something like that. Some good battles. Got one this week coming up with Minnesota, and as you alluded to, got some great players, over there. Like James Franklin doing a great job, and so it's exciting to see. We just got to keep up with the momentum and not, you know, uh, just not turn off the gas, so to speak, and just keep the fire. Of course, we'll have to see some great teams in the playoffs, as you mentioned. So that's going to be fun and exciting with this 12 team expansion here, and hopefully we can host the game uh, uh, in the next month. And yeah, just look for some great football.
Yeah, Minnesota, as you mentioned, that's a tough team. I mean, they're kind of those, you don't really want to have to play them. They're upset minded. They're looking to come in and your house and each week they've beat some teams I didn't think they were going to beat by scores. I didn't think, they beat Maryland quite handily. And I didn't expect that. If anything, a close game. They've played a tough schedule. They've got some solid players on both sides of the ball. I mean, Penn State's favored, but it's not one of those games you want to overlook. Like, oh, we're looking at the playoff. We're gonna pass over this because we should beat them. It's one of those games you really have to focus on.
No, you're definitely right. I mean, those Minnesota's definitely not one of those teams where you can just turn the page. And so I know James got them ready this week to dial in and focus in. And as you mentioned, if you sleep on them, they will come and haunt you. But the fact of that they're in state college, I believe they're in state college this week, is a big thing. It's really hard to win. I mean, in at University Park, it's really tough. I mean, especially once it gets late in the fall and fall season, it's really tough to win there. So I think the advantage definitely will go to us and we'll definitely come out there. But yes, it's not going to be a cakewalk, so to speak. And so, but like I said, I'm sure James got those boys ready to play, got them dived in to really come out with a victory.
So you keep talking about James Franklin with some confidence. And there's plenty of people in the sports world some Penn State fans that have been calling for his job over the past years
Hmm.
because he can't win the big games. And I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I've had there's Notre Dame fans that say the same thing about various coaches of ours. Can't win the big games, got to move on. I don't know. I
Hmm.
think people are too quick to move on from coaches. The coach slips up once, and in this kind of modern world, people want to move on right away. They don't really want to give him a chance. And then if you look at James Franklin's whole what he's done at Penn State, I mean, yes, he has struggled against teams like Ohio State. That is true, but he has done a lot of great things for the program, and they have been a force to reckon with each year. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, these days times are different, especially in my days 20 years ago. Literally, yeah. Yeah, geez, 20 years has dated myself. From since after I graduated. And a few things. Number one, you got NIL, right? This really changed the game in terms of what schools get what players, right? I mean, come on, it could be a play to play, pay to play league as we're talking now. So that's kind of one factor. And then the other factor, as you're alluding to it, is that so where I'm going with this is that with James and what he's been able to do, Penn State's not one of these schools that really toss around a ton of money to guys. I mean, they're just not. We're probably not ever going to compete with the Texas, with the Texas A&Ms and the Texas world with the big oil money schools, right? That can got 35 million they can put in NIL. And I think we're lucky, if we can get 5 or 7 million a year in NIL that will go into the bucket. Even with Ohio State, I believe they have more. So these things change the game. So I'm saying all that because these are things, the factors that people don't look into when we were being very critical. I was also at some point probably very critical pre NIL, like, man, we can't get over the Michigans and Ohio States, and that's just because as alumni and also as fans, et cetera, got very high standards. You know what I mean? Like we're not even it may sound bougie, but we're not even looking at the in the bowl game, if if it's like 9-2, like or 8-3, like we're like, what? What happened to the other three? That's just because our standards are so high. So anytime that you get, passionate fans are talking for his head, it's just because, yeah, they're frustrated that we're not beating Ohio States and in some cases Michigan's in some years and et cetera. And it's literally two teams that we fall to every single time that we have issues. But as I said, regarding now, I think he's doing a phenomenal job, especially I think it's changed with NIL, and it's tough to get kids to school, especially for if you can't pay them these millions and millions of dollar deals. So I think James is the best for us, especially in the situation that of what we have now and how football has evolved.
Yeah. And I think people, if they make the playoff, which they should, they're on the right path. If they make the playoff and then they win a game in the playoff, that should quiet everyone and what they're saying. There's no reason to get hyped up anymore but everything you said is true. It's so hard to recruit kids. You see it now more than ever. Kids decommit and then they recommit to another school and then they decommit and then they recommit to another school. I mean, if you
Correct.
land a recruit, it's not over. Now you've got to try to
Hmm.
hold on to that kid because somebody else is
Hmm.
going to throw some money and try and steal them. Not to mention transfer portal. I mean, it's a crazy world, and
It's
it's
crazy.
so different than from when you played. So crazily different.
Yeah. A lot different. It's literally a whole entire game, process, recruiting process, and et cetera. And yeah, of course, you had times where you can commit and decommit. And even I did briefly. I committed to Penn State, decommitted, went to Washington State, came back to Penn. But that was it. And and then I stuck it out with the Penn. And back then, we didn't have any money or get any money or anything like that. So obviously, it was just based on feeling and whatever, whatever your mind and your friends or family kind of influence you had. But for the most part now it's different. You got so many factors involved. And again, a lot of it's revolved around money. And let's be honest too, to your point, where let's say a kid commits to a school and then decommits and commits again, how much look, there's schools that could be scrounging up money if they really want to get a player. So they may go to a booster and say, hey, we need X amount of dollars because we're trying to get here. If we don't, he's going to go over here. So it just changed the whole dynamic of college football. But that's here's where we are, and happy for those kids that can make a little bit of change while they're in school. Yeah, it'd have been nice if I was there as well with it, but it's what it is.
Right. And as a coach, you have to adapt. You know, that you can't complain. I mean, everyone can sit here and complain. And yeah, I mean, I totally think that there need to be some changes, some just in the way, I think athletes should be able to get paid and the transfer portal is nice, but maybe put some limitations. I mean, we can sit back and we can say all that, but at the same time, you have to adapt as a coach because if you don't, you'll fall behind
I
and
think
your program
eventually
will
there'll
fall
be a
behind.
cap. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think there'll have to be a cap. It's really every year it's just a scaling. So, but anyway, we'll see. It makes for good conversation and obviously good football and year round, right? Basically,
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
honestly, it's like free agency. I mean, you
oh,
you know.
yeah,
Uh, well, let's go back to I guess you could almost say a more simpler time in college athletics. Kind of what, back in the some people call them the glory days. I miss the game the way it used to be or whatever. You get older people and kind of the way they look at it, but
sure.
everything evolves, so there's no sense in getting hung up in that. But I mean, you played in a different time period, so totally
Hmm.
different experiences than kids have now. One thing that hasn't changed is something that you went through, and it's still common today, and it's a position switch. That happens all the time. Kids come in recruited at one position, and then they end up transitioning to a different one. That's happened back then. It happens now. You see it often. It happens when guys get to the league sometimes. So
Hmm.
you were a defensive end, eventually
Hmm.
made the switch to tight end. Whose decision was that? Was that your thought, or was it your coaches that said, "Hey, we think you'll be better suited, uh, you know, blocking and catching passes and
Yeah. So, actually, when I got to Penn State, I was recruited as a tight end. So I got recruited as tight end. I ended up, so the first day I ended up at linebacker and from tight end. I ended up hurting my shoulder and AC joint sprain. So I ended up redshirting the whole year because I had a lot of nerve damage and a bunch of stuff. So then I come back, that spring and now my hands in the dirt. I'm a defensive end. So, I think at that point it was just opportunity. If you recall, like that 2000 year was huge. It's a big year. I mean, Penn State was really good. They were number two in the country. LeVar Arrington just graduated. Courtney Brown, like all these greats had just left, and so it was a little depleted, on the defense, which was good in a way for opportunity. So I had an opportunity to play um, and versus maybe the other side of the ball. So honestly, I never even thought about it from that aspect. I just went out and hey, I had an opportunity to play. It was offensive defense there. So then fast forward 4 years, I'm doing it again. So I'm going from defense, which had a great career defense, defensive end, and then I switched to tight end. And that one was, I walked into Joe Paterno's office, and he said, um, "We'd like to move you to tight end." And two reasons. The first reason is that he said he thought I'd make a better tight end in the league than defensive end. Straight shooter guy. I said, okay, all right, And then kind of hurt a little bit because basically like what you're saying. Are you saying like I'm not good at defense? Like, or like what you're saying. So, but it's what it was. But then the other side too was that it was depleted at tight end. Like a ton of tight ends had left the year before. Matt Kranchak, et cetera. He went to Steelers, like, and a couple other guys. So um, I said, yeah, okay, guess I'm a tight end. And so yeah, so it worked out. I ended up playing tight end my senior year, and I went into I did okay. I mean, it's we're merging positions. You're literally, especially going from defense to tight end. The blocking part was simple. I had to kind of spend some extra time catching the ball and et cetera, because I hadn't spent that much time catching the ball. But if you learn how to catch, you know how to catch, right? And then I went into after my after Penn State years and went into the combine and as tight end and just really just trimmed up to prepare being a tight end. And so, I ended up getting picked up from Arizona Cardinals as a tight end. But then there was another change. Just really not noted as much. I ended up playing fullback tight end. So more of an H back, but more fullback than tight end when I got to Arizona. And I guess what I'll say to that is, there's a saying called the more you can do. And for me, I understood that as the type of person I was, this kind of athlete blanket player and my opportunity to make a team or to play also spanned on the versatility. So I looked at it as not only a challenge, but as a great opportunity and that coach saw in me that they give me to be able to let alone learn and switch a new position in college, senior college, but also in the league, like switch a position and trust you that that you can carry that out. So yeah, man, it was interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, people switch positions all the time, but you you switched a lot. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I feel like a lot of people they grow up playing one position, they switch, and then that's it. Now you're in your new position and you don't switch anymore. But you were back and forth and this and that, and that's hard because it's hard to master something when you're only doing it for so long. When you're playing the whole one position for your whole life course you're going to get better at it because you're just working at it, working at it, working at it. But kind of, hey, I'm feeling pretty good about tight end. Hey, now we want you to play fullback. You're like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
got I got to learn some new stuff. I got to it's kind of interesting.
It really helped me though to expand, the reach. And once you start getting to professionals, everything is numbers, right? Even down to players. So if as a player, if I can take two positions in one, then they have room to, it's like a chess match, and they may have room for in another room to another category to be able to bring somebody else in on defense or something, right? So, these are the things that you learn when you start getting into that ranks is, the why. But the more you can do, I think for me, if I wanted to make the team, you
You
do
just do
what you can
whatever.
do what you need to do to make a team, right? I wasn't a high draft pick, so that's what it was. And yeah, no, I'm happy that I had that opportunity to be able to showcase. And like I said, like I had not played fullback in my life to that point, but yeah, hey, it was an opportunity that I was up for this challenge, and led me to making the team. So
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's so brutal in the NFL. You only have, college, a lot of teams have 120 guys in the team, and then you get to the NFL and you cut that in half on how many guys are on the active roster. It's hard to make a
Mhm.
roster. So if you can make it in a different spot, there's not many guys that are gonna say, no, I think you can cut me. I'm not gonna give it a shot. Most guys, yeah, I'll try it. Whatever it takes to stay on the team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whatever it takes. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
So back to Penn State, I was kind of looking through your guys' seasons and different games, and one that kind of stuck out just because it was a wacky score that you don't see all the time in football was a 6-4 loss to Iowa. And
Mhm.
I feel like 6-4, I think that's a hockey score or something like that.
Mhm.
I don't think of that in football. Do you remember that game at all?
Yeah, I remember it vividly. I don't remember all the details, but I obviously there was a couple of field goals that went on. It seems like a couple of safeties, which is weird. Yeah, Iowa was always a tough team. We always had fits with them. Um, Especially back then. I mean, they had a really good team. I mean, Iowa back then, a lot of great players. A couple of people I can't remember at the top of my tongue. A lot of great players. They always keep fits, yeah. But 6-4, you're right. I mean, those are one of those scores that the crowd was just bored out of their mind. Just watching no touchdown score and a couple of safeties and some
Yeah.
field goals. But yeah, man, I was always one of the tough teams. And look, anytime you're playing in the Big Ten, especially I say the old Big Ten. I mean, um, every week and within the reason was a grind. Like there's no team that you can take off. Like, whether it's in Iowa, whether like Minnesota, we're talking about Michigan, Michigan State. I mean, this is even before Rutgers and Maryland. I don't think Maryland was in my years, but yeah, and those you had some teams that were you expect to win, like in Indiana back then, and so et cetera, et cetera. But no pun to all my Indiana people and colleagues and team and former teammates, but it's Indiana, right? And so so with that, you knew that you're going to be the dogfight every single week, and so Iowa definitely was no different. I do
Right.
remember though going to Iowa and they had the pink locker room, and that was something that would steer your mind a bit. It was definitely a mind trap. Right? You go
Yeah.
into visit locker room was pink, and so they did that purposely. So that was well done.
Yeah. Anything you can do to throw the team off their game.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
That's interesting though. I've never even, heard or thought of such a thing. Like, let's paint the locker room some wacky color, and that'll just get them flustered, right? When they're changing in there, they can't focus because it's pink.
It's interesting. Everything was pink, the lockers and the whole thing. You was like, okay, yeah, but yeah.
So, like you mentioned, you made it to the Arizona Cardinals. Everybody's dream is to get to the NFL or whatever sport you play. It's to make it
Mhm.
pro in that sport. And you make the roster and then you get hurt. So, I mean,
Mhm.
like everything feels like it's going good, and then all of a sudden you get hurt. How did you handle that? It kind of in the moment, right? Mentally, and then obviously you got this injury to overcome.
Yeah, man, it was fast, as you just said. So, rookie year, make the team. I sometimes I still have flashbacks when I'm going through Jersey because I got hurt at Giant Stadium, and I'll share this real quick. It was a few months back. I was interviewing Tiki Barber, and he was also in the field at the same time. Of course, he didn't know who I was at the time, right? Like it's not like he knew who I was, but we were on the same field, so I had to make sure he understood that like we played the same field. But I had some beef because I got hurt and during that game. But look, at the time it was just you don't think it's like like I had never been hurt like that before. I never had like tore tore a knee. So I was like, I'll be back in a couple of weeks now. And I remember Dennis Green was the head coach, and just a few series before, the starting fullback, pretending I was second fullback, third tight end. See how I took two spots, second fullback, third tight end.
Yeah.
So second fullback, third tight end, and the starting fullback also tore his ACL, like maybe through 2 or 3 series ahead. So it's like Bronson, you're in. So then I end up going in. I had some good series, and then we score. Then I end up on excuse me, well they score and end up on a kick return, and yeah, I think we're on kick return, and I just go down and I'm sorry, I'm a kickoff, not kick return, because we score, and I go down and I just lay this guy out. I never forget. His name is Chase Blackburn. I even remember his name. I mean, he's ended up sticking around for a long time in the league. And I just lay him out, but then I came up on the wrong side of it, and my knee was like, just hurting a bit. Tried to kind of walk it off, didn't work, and then finally I kind of went down for a minute, and then got to the sidelines. And I remember it was after the game. Denny asked me, he said, "Hey, Bronson, you gonna be okay for next week?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be okay. I'll be okay." He said, "Great, because you're starting fullback." I said, "Okay, cool." But in my head, I knew that I was done. I wasn't gonna be okay. But I hoped there was some magic pill or something like would get me ready. And yeah, sure enough, I stuck. I didn't go into reserve right away. So I stuck around for a couple of weeks and in hopes that I'll be able to kind of be more mobile. And then eventually, I didn't. I went in IR, and that was a wrap. And I was just rehabbing the rest of the year. So Yeah, it was a little kind of gut puncher a bit because like he had worked so hard and he got there and all this energy went into to reaching the goal. But at the same time, I also say, look, maybe I could have done a little bit more better. Maybe I could have prevented that. It's always self-reflect. If I would have, I was not took more care. It's easy to kind of say, all right, yeah, it happened to me, but it's harder to self-reflect and go, maybe I if I did a few more lunges, I don't know, like, or maybe took a little more
Right.
care, maybe it wouldn't have happened. And maybe I'd have been, instead of 3 years, it'd been 10 years, in the league. So what's done is done, but it was definitely an experience of a lifetime just to, be able to be and play with the greats, Kurt Warners and Larry Fitzgeralds, and against Michael Strahan at the time, and all that. But I did come back, so it wasn't so all wasn't lost. I
Right.
came back.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Right. Well, I mean, making the NFL in any capacity, playing 1 year, 10 years, however many years, making one catch or just playing in a game is more
yeah.
than most of us will ever have. And I feel like
Hmm.
a lot of people look at it, well, that guy must not have been very good. He wasn't there very long. And it's like, well, are we really ones to talk? Sitting on your couch, hollering at the TV when the backup quarterback is in because you think he sucks. Well, he's still in the NFL and
Yeah.
he's still playing against superstars. And the same could be said. If you make it to that level, that's an accomplishment, a huge accomplishment, no matter how long you're there. Make a practice squad, the mini camp trial, whatever you get. I mean, they're huge accomplishments that I don't think should be overlooked.
It's a game of, they call it a game of inches, but it's also a game of, it's you got to do a lot of things right.
Right.
There's also it can be, I believe they say, luck is where preparation meets opportunity. That's basically what it is, right? Like you have a little luck on your side. You're prepared, and for the opportunity, all these things kind of align at the same time. And one shifts, then something happens, right? And so it happens in my case. I always say this: anytime I would circle back and uh, I always say, look, I sold myself short in terms of goal. It's easy to say. When I was younger, I would say, I want to go to the NFL. Listen to my words. I want to go to the NFL. I did not define once I got to the NFL what exactly I wanted to do. I didn't say I wanted to go get to the NFL. I wanted to start as a tight end. I wanted to play 10 years. I wanted to go to three Pro Bowls, be a Hall of Famer. I didn't say that. I said get to the NFL. So I always say, like, look, be very actionable and intentional about like your thoughts, because if I look back and I go to my board or my goals back then, I did everything on my goal board that I wanted to do. What I didn't do was adjust it as I reached it and got to the next step. And so these are things that I know it sounds like, how does that relate to you hurting your knee? But it's the preparation part. Like, I was a rookie with not a lot of, I had $5 in my pocket, in college, and then, give me a few more dollars and to get to the to NFL. And so, you're a rookie kid and probably could have used it, been better wisely in like training and getting with more the right trainers, maybe more stretching, whatever. And again, maybe the injury never happened. So it's about mindset is a big part of it. And looking back, I've also could have done some things, better to extend my own career. And then more luck. Then I would have got luckier to have more opportunity. Get how that all comes together.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
all kids struggle with that, at any level, right? Like the everyone gets to that point and they look back and say, I wish I could have done things better. So hopefully, right, if enough kids hear from guys that made it to the league, play it a little bit, they take the advice, more guys can make more out of it, right? Like more guys can say, okay, this is what John said he wished he would have done. I'm gonna listen to what John said. I'm gonna take his advice and I'm gonna try to move forward. And does that mean you're going to be guaranteed to play 10 years in the NFL? No. I mean, obviously you can try your hardest, you can prepare your hardest, you can do all this stuff, and the cards still have to align the right way. I mean, it's a money game, like you said too. It's a game of numbers. I mean, things just Maybe you've got a veteran heavy team. They don't have a lot of room for young guys. They might take 30 guys to the mini camp and then, well, we've only got a handful of spots. Doesn't mean you're not good enough to play in the NFL. It's just the situation you're in. But, hopefully more guys can take advice from people that have been there and kind of use that to their advantage, right? Because I mean, everybody wishes somebody would have told them something extra. Looking back, you're like, man, if I would have known this, what could I have done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more information you have, the more right information you have, the more powerful you can be, and just it just takes a little bit, right? Like, I mean, I shared the biggest gap is my intentions. Had I understood, versus I'll give you an example of who was intentional. Larry Fitzgerald, very intentional guy, right? Breaker. Of course, he's a freak, right? He's probably one of the greatest receivers ever. But that also was intention, right? He had the intentions to do that. He didn't wake up to be great. But if you look at him, and I use him as a good example, or a guy Kurt Warner, which I also play with, these are guys that like I saw like every day, like their intentions, like they just didn't show up and wake up on Sundays and or could throw great passes or catch good balls. You saw it in their work ethic. I mean, in their lifestyle and their all these things. A lot of things that I learned a little bit from, and I could have learned more from, right? And so on and so forth, so forth. So I think all of that collectively, is a big differentiator from good to great, and just doing whatever it is that you want to do in life, and whether it's football or or something else.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's well put. So kind of wrapping up on football, right? You play a few years in the NFL. Now you've got to make this transition into the regular world and you gotta find a job or you gotta work somehow to make money because sports isn't making you money anymore. Like some guys, sports makes them money for a long time. And some guys stay in sports. They go into broadcasting, they go into coaching or whatever, but it's still not the same as being a player. A
Hmm.
lot of guys struggle in that transition because all they've known for their whole life is being a player, and now you've got to work a job, and you've kind of got that hole in your life where sports used to be. I've talked to a lot of guys that struggled making that transition from being a pro athlete to now having to adjust to a life without playing that sport. What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, no, I mean it definitely is. It's a transition. It can be a struggle, and I think for me though, the biggest thing that I attempted to do, and I think I did, pretty well, is leverage. I didn't have a big name as we talked. I didn't play a lot of years, but I was in a room with a lot of guys who, who were a lot bigger names than I did. So I I try to leverage the opportunity of network and leverage through different things, right? It could be when you're in the in NFL and et cetera, you have access to many different things, charity events and different events. So why not let you utilize all that? And I'll give you a quick story. One of the biggest components to my kind of like business success is actually came from this one scenario, one story I'm going to share. I was sitting at home one day, and a teammate of mine, we also went to school together at Penn State. He had called me and asked me if I wanted to go to this event, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll go." I didn't even know what the event was, and I wasn't a big golfer at the time, so it was a golf event, and I had not played golf. I think I played golf like one time, and I'm in a golf cart, so I didn't understand that like not the Masters, the PGA, they walk. I don't know if you follow golf, but I
Yeah,
mean,
oh yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know they walk. I just assumed that everybody's in golf carts. So he's like, so anyways, I get to the golf event. Forgot it was called Waste Management Open back then. I forgot what they call it now. Or no, Waste Management Open now. They call it FBR Open. Long story short, first I pull up like I own the place and everything, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for the Pro-Am tournament, and so anyway, so I finally find my spot, and all these different golfers, BJ Sings here, Phil Mickelson, and all these guys. So it's kind of a cool setting. I had only heard about these guys, so I go to my golfers, guy I'm golfing with or caddying for in theory, uh, called Olin Brown. He was on the tour, but he wasn't, a Mickelson name. Long story short, here's where I understood that we're walking 18 holes. Well, I was like, oh, we're walking. Okay, it's hot out here, but okay, let's do it. So anyway, we're walking, and there's a little group of people that are there, the sponsors, and obviously, the caddy, the real caddy, and family, et cetera, because it's a pro-am, so it's a little more loose. But on this journey of 18 holes, I ended up, meeting one particular guy. He was a sponsor of this hole, but more importantly, he was a business guy in Arizona. He didn't really kind of give me about the business stuff, but told me his story, his ups and downs, and that he, done a lot, lost a lot, and all these things. We really connected. So anyway, so that led me to towards the end of the round, he invites me to his office. He says, "Hey, what are you doing next week?" I said, "Nothing. Stop at my office. I got a couple of tickets for you." Again, I had no clue what this event was. So I go to his office next week, pick up some tickets. Come to find out, he's like one of the biggest financial guys in Arizona, and he's, with his clients are like Kobe and Shaq and a bunch of other people that like had on the walls and anything. So anyway, he says, "I have some tickets for you to this event called Celebrity Fight Night, Muhammad Ali Celebrity Fight Night." So great, wear a suit. Great, I wear a suit. So when I show up to the event, I really still don't know what I'm involved with, right? Other than know Muhammad Ali's going to be there. Boy, I was wrong. It was like star-studded. So I get to the event at the JW Marriott in Phoenix and walk this real red carpet, right? And here am I. I'm just like a backup, tight end in Arizona Cardinals, and here I'm standing next to Babyface and Reba McEntire, Garth Brooks, and Kirstie Alley, God rest his soul, and Matt Liner before we were teammates, because my first year, and it's on and on and on. I can't just musicians and actors and Jim Carrey, which I was starstruck. Jim, all these guys, right? They're just going through the red carpet, and I'm like, wow, like here I am. So fast forward, we get to the point where they're making all the announcements. And they're going, from there, they go through everybody. From the Arizona Cardinals, we have Anquan Bowden, woo! Everybody's like cheering, cheering. Then we got Larry Fitzgerald, everybody goes crazy, goes wild. We got Kurt Warner, we have John Bronson. So it was like three claps, right? All the people at my table because we just met.
Yeah.
But here's where the rubber meets on this story is that at my table, I end up having a meeting have a one of the guys in being one of my long-term mentors that I end up being able to rent space for free in his office for like literally 12 years, right? Like, and there's a reason, and there's a story behind that. Another guy, we end up doing business together. And another guy ended up being another great mentor of mine that's ran this that had about 50 franchises, this pizza joint around the U.S. And then another guy was just a club owner, but he was a good resource for that time because I was going to the club that he owned at the time. But what that taught me is about networking, about your network and how connected you are. So leveraging the opportunity that I had as a player to get into that golf event to lead me to meet this guy to eventually to get me to other opportunities. So I say all of that because to get come full circle, that's how I start to leverage and build everything that I'm involved with was just building network and connecting with people first to find the best opportunities and et cetera. So to that point, that led me to starting a network in Arizona. I did some real estate stuff, and had some failures and successes there, and it's foundational. But, one of the things that really drove me was connecting other athletes with the business community in said area. So I opened a network back then to do just that because as athletes, you're not really in the community very, very much unless you're intentional about it. So this was an intentional way to bring athletes who were either current or former around people who were just, owners of the paint shop or the store or the car, they own the car lot or whatever the case is, and literally just have his resources and connect for whatever you're looking to do. And so I built that into, to a very very moving company before I decided to kind of set sail and hit the travel road. So yeah, man, I can go on and on about business, but I wanted to share that story because what was important is it's really about the network and about the people that you can connect with that can really help, and it's just as important as what you know.
Right. Because I mean, at the time, like you said, you went into all this clueless, not really knowing why you're there, what's going on, but it ends up helping you later on. And I think that's great advice for anyone. It's like don't turn down opportunities. Take opportunities when they're presented to you because you never know what that opportunity might lead to eventually and how big connections are. Like I
Absolutely.
know I remember being at college. Um, so I went to Michigan Tech and they'd have one big career fair for like all the engineering degrees and the computer science and all those different companies. And you have Milwaukee Tools and Ford and all these major companies there trying to recruit engineers. But I was in forestry, so they'd hold a separate career fair just for kind of the natural resource world, different companies. And there would be so many kids that wouldn't go to it. They just never went to the job for the career fair. But you know how many people you meet, and then you give them your resume and you talk to them, and right. I mean, just having that one conversation with somebody,
Mhm.
that small connection can help you later down the line. But I just think about how many kids never went. They never took
Yeah.
those opportunities. Um, I mean, then you took your opportunity and it paid off for you. So I feel like that's the message here for anyone, athletics or non-athletics. Take the opportunities, make connections with people because you never know when it's going to be valuable. I mean, you could meet somebody and then 10 years later, it's like, well, I'm glad I know that person for whatever reason.
Absolutely. You could have said it better. And that's the message right there. Take the opportunities um, to reach out and to, yeah, absolutely. You could not have said that better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we kind of wrap up the episode? I mean, you grew up in a kind of a football family. You have your
I did.
brothers
Yeah.
that played professionally, and that's cool to see when you've got multiple people from the same family that all manage to make it. I mean, it's cool, and then I'm sure you had sibling rivalry, that between each other, wanting to outdo the. I mean, it's hard not to when you've got siblings, and I'm an only child, so I don't know fully. But it seems to be that siblings always want to best each other.
Yeah, so you're exactly right, and I'm proud that all of my siblings they've rose to the occasion and been phenomenal athletes in their own right. Actually started my next my sister. She went to Morgan State. She was track and basketball, so she was dual sport in college. She didn't get to the professional ranks of basketball, et cetera, but she broke a lot of records in college. And then I got my brother, my middle brother. He played for the Seahawks, and I had a lot of fun. I was finished by the time he was playing because he's 8 years younger. So I was able to go to the games and kind of be involved a little bit more. And I loved being a kind of a fan in those years that he was there. Went to the Super Bowl, and he was at that Super Bowl that they did not give it to Marshawn. Like I was there, and I'm still pissed about it. I'm still really mad about it to this day. And yeah, robbed of the Super Bowl, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, he was on some great teams, and you talking about like even turning it up a notch to everything I said, like that's still Seattle, like the what is it, the LOB and like those teams, man, that was beast mode. Like it's crazy. It's a whole nother level, whole nother level. And then so he played a few years, and now he runs a sports facility in Orlando, Lake Nona, called 53 Squad Training. So he's been doing really well. Oh, also forgot to mention he was also a wrestler too. So he went from football to wrestling, and that's how he got to Orlando was for wrestling. So that was kind of sidebar. And then my youngest brother is he's actually 15 years young, my junior, and he's still active. He's been bouncing around, but yeah, he started at the Saints, and I think with the Cleveland and with Dallas, I believe, for a bit, and Miami, and he was just recently at the Colts. I can't keep track of everything. I'm pretty sure he's been in and out in the Colts. But yeah, I'm proud of how they've taken opportunity, and it's very tough, as you talked about, to get to the league, but also stay in it. It's a business, and it's one of those professions where you got to be great every day, and that's what makes it difficult. But they've managed to nail their piece in the sand in the NFL as well, and yeah, no, I'm happy that my parents, they've done well to have three boys and all make it to the league. So
Yeah.
and
And it's cool that you got to, being the older sibling, like you said, you got to enjoy it, right? Because if you were all
yeah,
in the league at the same time, you're also focused on what what you're doing, that you
exactly.
don't get to be excited for your sibling. You don't be, have the same connection. So I mean, you went through your period, and then you got to watch him and support him and be
Yeah,
there, and
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
absolutely. No, you're exactly right. And for me, it's even more fun to kind of to see that aspect, to be a fan of the game and see it from a different perspective. And so, yeah, it's been fun.
Right. Well, I end every episode on music. Do you like music? You a
I
music
love
guy?
music. Yeah, I
Okay,
love
good.
music.
Because once in a while you get somebody who's like, I'm not a big music person, and that's kind of hard. But I always try to get some, like, what's your favorite song? And I know that's hard, but or at least like, what is there something that you're like really into right now, or kind of what type of music? I always try to get something out of people because I'm always on the lookout for new music. So if I get something from a podcast and then kind of, you spread it around and music suggestions. So like what do you really vibe with?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple. So I'll give you kind of my overall, if you'd ask me like, this may date you me a bit, but my favorite band, which is actually part of the title, is Dave Matthews Band. You're
Okay.
familiar? You familiar with Dave
Yeah.
Matthews?
Yeah.
So he has a ton of music. Yeah, I just love. I'm a big instrument person. It's gonna lead me to my next. So I love hearing the acoustics and his music that just vibrate in many different ways. He has
Yeah.
saxophone and trumpet. He got keyboard and bass, like, and drummers, like, and it's of course mixed in with music. So Dave's always been one of my favorite. Man, he has so many good songs. Of course, it would be one of his songs. I can't say which one. It's just so many. All the songs are great. Um, and then I'll give you an all the other sides. When I'm not listening to music with words, I actually listen to a lot of music with no words. So I listen to a lot of the jazz, like more like piano, classical. There's a guy named I've been listening lately. I know it's gonna sound boring to your crowd, but his name is Alexis French. He's a great composer of piano music, and the reason why is because I'm always working, so I like to listen to something like a little more just relax.
Yeah.
And but he produced some great piano music, so you may not get any hits on these two suggestions, but that's it. That's who I listen to. Yeah, of course, I have different genres of music depending on the mood or whatever, but most of the time I'm in work mode and I like to stick to something classical or jazzy these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of Dave Matthews Band. I really like the song Ants Marching.
Ants
Um,
Marching, that's a great song. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great.
And then like I'm totally with you. Like I have to listen to music if I'm doing some sort of work or like back when I was in college studying or whatever. So I'd listen to a lot of classical music or like movie scores, stuff with no words. Because
Yeah.
I hate the silence, but I gotta have something and the words are kind of distracting,
Yeah, I'll give you one more. That's love. That sounds some words, but still chill. It's a group called I think it's Smile, SYMLE. They have great songs. They have great
Okay.
songs. So it's like chill, chill pop. I don't know what you call it, but it's good music. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. There, you gave everyone a few different things to look up if there's
Yeah,
any
beauty
music
genre
lovers listening. Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
John, I appreciate you taking some time out of your night hopping on the podcast. You got an interesting story. I think a lot of good stuff out of this episode, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad we was able to do this, and Alex, all the best moving forward, and yeah, thanks for having me here.
Thanks for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes soon.